American Foreign Minister, and he said that they have guarantees from these armed groups to facilitate the work of this mission. I asked him, all the armed groups? He said yes. I wanted guarantees from the Syrian forces, and I gave this guarantee to the Ms. Kane. They said they wanted to start on Monday, and I said to them, we don't have any problems with that. Where do you want to start? They said they wanted to start in al-Moallem. I said, welcome, you are welcome to go there. Yesterday, they went to Moallem, and they went to the area under the control of the Syrian army without any bother, and they wanted to go to the area which is still under the control of the armed men. They met with fire by snipers, and a car was hit. So they had to go back. They had to go back to the area which is under the control of the Syrian forces. They wanted for the ceasefire to extend to 1 hour, and I said to them, no problem. Then they went to Moallem, in Moallem, the other part of Moallem, and they remained there for 3 hours. They came back.
They informed us last night that they want to head to the second region, to the second area. And we said that there is no problem. We will take all the same measures in the areas which we have control of. And we also said that we guarantee the security. We asked, did you call the other side? They responded by saying yes, of course, but we were surprised today that they were not able to go to the second area because the armed groups over there didn't agree amongst one another regarding guaranteeing the lives of the inspectors, and so hence their travel was delayed until tomorrow. I say this in order for you to know that the Syrian side is implementing everything it showed commitment to, everything it's committed to. And I say this, I told John Kerry that we are not the ones obstructing the work of the inspectors, and we provided guarantees. The armed groups, however, did not provide such guarantees, and the guarantees were not solid. The guarantees from the armed groups. They then said that you were late in allowing the inspectors to enter. I respond by saying, very simply, they came Saturday, Sunday we agreed, and on Monday they went, they traveled. We didn't argue with them regarding the sites they requested to inspect, and we immediately agreed to their demands. And so there is no delay. However, we cannot tell the group, the UN envoy, to go to Ghouta when it's 10,000 kilometers squared. We must agree beforehand on the sites and on the timetable. Then, how can we be accused of delaying? Because they are the ones who delayed the arrival of the group of inspectors 5 months after the armed groups used chemical weapons or some chemical ingredients in Khan al-Assal. They were delayed 5 months. We applied our request ever since the 19th of March. We applied and we made the request. However, they only came last week. Then the Foreign Minister of Britain said that the Syrian armed forces took away any traces of chemical weapons use. We say that these traces, the Syrian armed forces cannot take them away or eliminate them because they exist in the areas which are under control of the armed groups. Second, the United Nations said yesterday that it can still, or that the investigating probe or the investigating group can still expand its efforts in these areas. And so this is addressed to the Foreign Minister of Britain, and what he said is not based on facts. However, he wants to give false information to his own public opinion. They said that the Syrian armed forces used these weapons, chemical weapons. I completely, categorically denied to Mr. Kerry this issue, and I say that there is no country in the world which uses weapons of mass destruction against its own people. And hence, if anybody who accuses our armed forces, if anybody who makes this accusation has evidence of this, of the use of chemical weapons by the Syrian armed forces, I challenge him or her to show this evidence to public opinion or reveal it to the public opinion. It is the right of the public opinion in those countries to be informed of the true nature of these accusations, and so I challenge them. What is most important of all is that we are still committed in giving all assistance and guarantees to the investigative committee in order to continue what we agreed on last Sunday. We are all hearing the drums of war beating around us. Now, if they want to launch an aggression against Syria, I believe that using the justification of chemical weapons is not precise. It is not precise at all. And as I said, I challenge them to reveal what they have in their possession regarding evidence. However, if they want to achieve other aims by launching such an aggression, then I wonder, what are these goals or these aims they want to achieve? The only logical response is, what are their aims from this military campaign? If their aim is to have a moral effect to harm the morale of our people, then I believe they would be mistaken. Cohesion amongst the Syrian Arab people and its armed forces and its leadership, this cohesion is what enabled us to persevere throughout this campaign or throughout this crisis. During this crisis, we have been confronting the world, the armed groups who come from the borders or via the borders from Turkey. They come from 83 different countries. They come from most of the Arab countries except for Djibouti. And what I'm saying is documented. And so what do they get out of this? I know that anything which takes place in this region must serve the interests of Israel. And hence, such a military campaign or aggression must first and foremost serve the interests of Israel. Second of all, it would undoubtedly serve the military efforts which al-Nusra is exerting. Al-Nusra, of course, is tied with al-Qaeda, this group in Syria. And so the United States of America and its allies are exerting war efforts against Syria in order to serve Israel first and foremost, and maybe they are proud of this. However, also in order to serve al-Nusra in Syria second of all. And if they believe that this military strike which they are planning for, if they believe that this would have an effect or an impact on the military efforts which are going on right now, the military efforts in al-Ghouta, I assure you that such a military strike won't have any effect on our military efforts. It won't have any effect on what our heroic armed forces will achieve. Achievements in al-Ghouta. Of course, our campaign in al-Ghouta had two aims. First of all, a preemptive strike against their plans regarding invading the city of Damascus, and the second aim of the al-Ghouta military campaign of the Syrian army was to prevent any harm being done to the inhabitants of the suburbs of Damascus. Any harm being done because of the shells which sometimes fall in Germana and sometimes fall in the Qursa suburb and sometimes fall in other areas in Damascus. We want to reassure the inhabitants of Damascus that the aim of our military efforts is to provide their safety, to guarantee their safety, and so hence the military efforts, our military efforts, won't stop. If they want to put a limit to the victories of our armed forces, then they are dreaming. And so what do they want from this strike? Do they believe that this strike would achieve breaking the ties between the army, people and the leadership? I assure you, in that perspective, they are also mistaken. They said that the White House hasn't made a decision yet. And the reason for my press conference is to show the American public opinion that what is being promoted by the officials of the American administration about the use of chemical weapons is a lie. It's a complete lie. And indeed, we cooperated with the investigative committee with full transparency. We were committed to this cooperation in order to reach the truth. Two days ago, the foreign minister of Turkey made a statement whereby he said that Turkey would be part of the alliance which would wage a war on Syria, whether it be by the Security Council or outside the Security Council. I don't want to comment on what Ahmed Dawood said, because I am sure that the Turkish people, the friendly Turkish people, are enough to be a balance with the officials. Of course, I think that because of what happened in Egypt, the Turkish people will be more friendly towards Syria. The final point which I would like to speak about is the meeting of the 10 Joint Chiefs of Staff which took place in Jordan. I don't know if the head of a Joint Chief of Staff of the Israeli Army was there or not. I don't think so, because Israel has special treatment with the United States of America in case it decides to launch a campaign against Syria. It calls on Israel to stay away because there is someone cooking for Israel and serving its interests. However, just today, I heard what the spokesman of the Jordanian government said, whereby he stated that Jordan's territory won't be used to strike Syria. This is something good and natural. There is no interest for Jordan or for its people in striking Syria. However, whoever follows what is going on, we, for 2.5 years, we have suffered a lot. We have suffered a lot from the catastrophes which we get via Jordan's borders. However, regardless, we didn't behave towards Jordan in any negative way because we are keen and intent on our people or on helping our people in Jordan. They said that we want to send or we want to bring Patriot missiles. We laughed. Patriot missiles against who? In our mind, we don't want to carry out any attack, anything against Jordan. Recently, they also started to speak about training the Jordanian army against the possibility of a chemical war being waged against Jordan. I say, I'd like to tell my brothers in Jordan, don't make others blackmail the neighborly ties and the brotherly ties which exist between Syria and Jordan. The interest of Jordan is for it to be with Syria. The security of Jordan is attached to the security of Syria. They might say that the meeting of the heads of Joint Chief of Staff was decided beforehand. Maybe. However, why at this time? It could have been delayed. This is what I wanted to inform you regarding the facts which took place over the past few days. Go ahead. First question. You don't need a microphone, but anyway, you can still have one. Okay, you don't have to stand up as well. Mr. Minister Walid al-Moallem, you said that you contacted, or there was a contact between you and John Kerry after many years of broken ties, and it was a friendly call for 10 minutes between you and John Kerry. However, today the Russian-American meeting, which was supposed to take place in The Hague, was cancelled. Does this mean that the Americans have now taken the decision of launching military action against Syria? And where are the Russians when it comes to what is going on, and where are the Iranians when it comes to the Joint Defense Pact? This is a question which includes four questions. Once again, the journalist repeats, you're saying it was a friendly dialogue, although it only lasted for 10 minutes. First of all, when it comes to cancelling the Russian-American meeting in The Hague, we said from the beginning that we are doubtful when it comes to American intentions towards the Geneva Conference. And we said time and again, we told our friends in Russia time and again that we are confident, we trust you, but we don't trust the United States. The United States doesn't want a political solution via the Geneva Conference, and the reason is very simple, because Israel doesn't want a political solution. Israel wants a continuation of the violence and terrorism, and so does the United States. So, all of these steps about delaying or cancelling, all of this shows that the United States of America doesn't want a political solution, and this was our evaluation from the beginning. With respect to the Russian stance, I would like to remind you that the Syrian-Russian ties are historic ties, and they go back decades, and they are still continuing until today. The cooperation on the political level is almost on a daily basis, by phone calls or via meetings, diplomatic meetings. Second of all, the backbone of our armed forces is based on the contracts which we sign with previously the USSR and now the Russian Federation, and there are commitments from both sides to implement these contracts. So Russia is part of our perseverance. Number three, our economic relations are good, and there are many different projects which our Russian friends are carrying out in Syria. So there should be no doubts when it comes to Russian-Syrian ties. Another question about comments made by Sergei Lavrov yesterday, however, the reporter without the microphone. What do you expect from the Russian foreign ministers to say on such an occasion? Do we have an interest for the World War to come to our territories? I assure you that our ties with the Russian Federation are solid ties in all different arenas. Don't forget that Russia and China, for the first time in history, they are behaving by using their veto in the Security Council. They prevented Western intentions from repeating what happened in Libya. With respect to Iran, we have complete coordination with our brothers in Tehran and also in all different areas. What else did you ask? Again, the military strike, if it happens, what about the Joint Defense Pact between Iran and Syria? First of all, there is no such pact between Iran and Syria. This is something only said in the media. However, I say, and the brothers in Tehran know this, I say that what is going on in Syria and what is going on in Iraq is an implementation of a policy which has been drawn up ever since 2009 in order, in the end, to target Tehran. And so we and Tehran together, we are in the same category, in the same hole, if we can say. Mr. Minister Wafa Shabuni from Al-Akhbariyya Al-Suriya, you spoke about a military strike which could possibly be launched, a possible American strike against Syria. However, you didn't speak about the Syrian response to such a strike, especially as Mr. Khalaf al-Maftah, the assistant or the assistant information minister, said the Syrian response would be strategic. Can you speak to us about the meaning of such a strategic response, far away from diplomacy, especially because you are certain when it comes to the Russian-Iranian stance? Do you want me to comment on what Khalaf al-Maftah said? No. First of all, I didn't say that it was certain that there would be a strike. I didn't say that. I said that it might be psychological warfare. There may be a military strike, and I say that the Syrian citizen doesn't differentiate between a cruise missile or any other rocket which lands in any of the people's suburbs. I'm not saying anything certain. We are analyzing. In case the strike does take place, we have two options. Either we surrender or we defend ourselves with the available means. And this is the best option. I don't want to go further or discuss this any further. Question was inaudible. However, the response is that we will defend ourselves with the available means. point. That's it. Bilal Maroof from the Syrian Arab television. Mr. Minister, they say that this escalation is in order to bring about a balance on the ground. The question is, will this come from the outside? And if they say there will be certain pinpoint targeted strikes if a campaign is launched against Syria, will the efforts to achieve a political solution end? No, only one question, not more than one, please, for the sake of the other journalists. First of all, if the aim of the strike is to achieve a balance on the battlefield, I say that it's enough to be proud as a Syrian, to be proud that there is a group of superpowers, France, Britain, the United States and others. Of course, the financer is Arabs. They are financing all of this. We should be proud because all these people are gathering because we have persevered for the duration of the crisis, and this perseverance will continue. And so, bring back the balance. Once again, I respond that this is mistaken. It's mistaken to think about it. It's not probable at all. However, with respect to the political efforts, when the strike comes, then we'll speak about it. A question appears to be about Saudi Arabia, but also the journalist without the microphone. Another question. President Bashar al-Assad said during one of his interviews that if any military action is launched against Syria, the whole region would light up in flames only within hours, and so will the oil wells in the Gulf. I don't remember this. al-Moallem responding, I don't remember this. And I would also like to ask about the role of the Arab League now in striking Syria. Possible strikes from the outside. Syria is part of the Arab League, and it is a country which played a part in finding the Arab League or establishing the Arab League. It's true that its membership was suspended for different reasons. You, as a respected journalist, and I appreciate you very much, I find it strange that you ask about something called the Arab League. I find that strange. So for that reason, I won't answer this question. I don't see that the Arab League even exists. Yeah, I'll come to you. Mr. Minister Hisham Wanous from Latin American television. The UN committee, investigative committee, is still in Syria, and it will continue with its efforts for 14 days, as was agreed. When will the results of the investigation be revealed, despite the fact that we know that the US and its allies will not wait for these results, and they have begun to threaten and accuse the Syrian government of using chemical weapons? First of all, when will it present its report? That's for the committee to answer. We don't intervene in this. And second of all, for the US and its allies to behave preemptively. Yesterday, Mr. John Kerry said that this committee doesn't decide who used the chemical weapons. We are not the ones who decided what the mandate of the committee was. The US and its allies in the Security Council, correct me, Faisal, if I'm mistaken, they decided what the mandate of the investigative committee would be. And they demanded from the committee not to specify who used the chemical weapons. This is something strange. We are living in an era which is very close to the era of the jungle, or the law of the jungle. They speak with us about the international law and they're afraid of it. They speak about the UN Charter, but they breach it. They speak about the UN Security Council resolutions, but they are the first to breach them. And so this is reality. Mr. Minister, give someone from the back rows Mr. Minister Rania Zannoun from al-Akhbariyya Syria, with respect to Jordan, you always, or the Syrian Foreign Ministry always speaks about good ties with Jordan, although the Jordanian role is very clear when it comes to financing and training the armed groups and sending them to Syria. Realistically today, with respect to this, especially as the reports have said that Jordan would be another arena for launching a war on Syria after Turkey, how is this evaluated from your perspective? And another question, if you allow me, with respect to the investigative committee, if it doesn't decide who used chemical weapons, what's the benefit of this committee remaining on Syrian territory? The committee remaining in Syria, they are not in the people investigating a crime. They are scientists. And so their opinion is required. We don't have any previous experience in dealing with such committees, and I'd like to tell you frankly that we benefit from them a lot. And with respect to the role of Jordan, I pointed out to the role of Jordan, and I don't want to speak a lot about this. I said that Jordan's commitment to not using Jordanian territories to launch a campaign against Syria is something normal, because Jordan doesn't get anything out of striking Syria. Let me go to the back rows. Mr. Minister, you were quoted in one of the meetings as saying that no unique weapons, as you was promised, no unique weapons have been sent to the armed groups in Syria. What would push the US not to uphold its promise, the promises it gave to the armed groups? First of all, you must look at when I made this statement, because the Syrian crisis, every day we see new developments in this crisis. This escalation might be taking place in order to turn attention away from the unique weapons which could be reaching the armed groups via Turkey. And so every day there are new developments with respect to the armament of the terrorist groups. They were quoted as saying that they received 400 tons of developed weapons. We don't have anything which denies this. Maybe this is all only furor in order to arm this opposition, this terrorist armed opposition. So what I said back then might have been true. However, today, this is a development. Mr. Minister, from Al-Masira Yemeni television, Mr. Minister, it's a repeated question. I heard you speaking about the military strike as if it's imminent. You spoke about the targets. I didn't say, did I say targets? You spoke about the aims of this. You spoke about the aims of the strike if it takes place. Yes, and you said that the US would try to keep Israel away from such a strike. Will Damascus keep Israel far away from such a strike and its repercussions? When this strike takes place, we will see. I don't want to speak preemptively. I don't want to speak about something which would put a burden on us based on assumptions. The back row. Rana Ismail from al-Akhbariyya Syria. How many al-Akhbariyya Syria journalists do we have? Let's give a turn for the others. I just want to ask about the timing of the drums of war beating now. Why this media escalation? And with respect to the Russian stance, you said that you are sure, you are reassured regarding the Russian stance. Why this media furor about the statements made by Sergei Lavrov lately that Russia would be far away from any possible war in the region? I answered. In my first answer to this question, I previously answered. So we must not overreact to this. What concerns me is our strategic ties with the Russian Federation, politically, economically, and militarily. And we are very comfortable with the development, the enhancement of these ties. Mr. Minister, yes, in the second row, your turn is finished. Alisar Ma'allal from Syrian satellite TV. Mr. Minister, during the phone conversation between you and the American Secretary of State, was there a direct accusation which was made in any way to the Syrian government of using chemical weapons? Back then, during the phone conversation, he said this is the first story of the world, and I responded and said this is fabricated, and I justified why it's fabricated, and I explained to Mr. Kerry the reasons why it is fabricated. And then he said, so you have a Syrian interest in allowing the investigative committee to enter, and I stressed on our interest in allowing the committee to come, and I said this, they can come. However, you reassured the Syrian people about the situation in Damascus. You said there would be no danger towards Damascus after the operation of the military. The aim of the army was to reassure the inhabitants of Damascus. Yes, however, if a military intervention takes place, will the situation change with respect to Damascus or Aleppo or anywhere else? I assure you that the momentum currently being witnessed in Ghouta, the military momentum of the Syrian army, will continue. Jean-Pierre Mahanna from Al-Manar TV. Why the timing of the strike now, especially after the achievements of the Syrian army on the outskirts of Damascus? Is it, as they say in the media, certain American and Israeli military officials in Al-Ghouta who are preparing for an operation against Damascus? I am not aware of the presence of any such military officers. However, why the timing? You answered yourself, because of the victories of our armed forces in Al-Ghouta. My dear colleagues, think how important is the Battle of Al-Ghouta. It is a preemptive battle. They were preparing to enter into Damascus, and we are confronting high numbers of them. Whoever counts the shells which landed in the suburbs of Damascus from Eid al-Adha until today finds that they are very high numbers of shells and rockets being launched. And so we must reassure the inhabitants of Damascus that the military efforts aim to protect them. So now I can say that the efforts are focused on reassuring Jaramana, the inhabitants of Jaramana in the Damascus countryside, by working on the outskirts of the airport. The efforts are also being focused on Joba and Arbor to reassure the Qassar area, also the Damascus countryside. Everything is planned, and I wish victory for our armed forces. Please, I want to give those in the back rows a chance. Mr. Minister, Ayad al-Jaji Dam Press, which is an internet website, media website. My question is far away from the chemical weapons. The Syrian people were subject to a lot of massacres. Some of them have reached the level of ethnic cleansing. Why didn't we witness any steps being taken in the Security Council or by the Syrian diplomacy? First of all, don't hope for anything from the Security Council. Hussam, how many letters did we send? Tens of letters we sent to the Security Council. Irrespective or regardless, currently we are legally documenting the massacres which were committed in the countryside of Latakia. And yesterday we called the mayor of Latakia in order for him to provide us very clearly and technically with the results of the investigations which have taken place regarding the massacres. We will not be silent, and when we receive all the information, we will distribute it to the public. Mr. Minister Muhammad Al-Khudr from Al-Mayadeen, more than once we have heard in the comments about chemical weapons, we have heard about evidence in the possession of the Syrian government that the side which used chemical weapons is the armed opposition. And also we have also heard that the Russians were speaking about images taken from satellite which prove that the armed opposition used chemical weapons. Why isn't this used within the framework or in light of the campaign against Damascus? I'd like to remind you regarding what took place in Khan al-Asal. On the 19th of March, we requested from the investigative committee to come in order to investigate in the armed groups using chemical ingredients. The investigative committee didn't come because of the French and British obstruction, and the committee arrived 5 months late. What happened during those 5 months? The armed groups attacked Khan al-Asal, and they also dug out the graves of the victims of those whom chemical weapons were used against, and they hid the bodies. So they took away any traces which could be looked at, any traces which we could use. I say we have evidence, and this evidence will be revealed at the appropriate time, especially in Ghouta. Mr. Minister Huda al-Aboud from Al-Ra'i al-Suriya channel, how do you describe to us what is going on now, the Saudi support for what is going on in Egypt, and shall we witness the entrance of the Wahhabis into Egypt, and is what is going on in Syria similar to what happened in Afghanistan? Is the Syrian scenario, the Afghan scenario, is it the same? Well, from the perspective of the US, without any doubt, there is no educational analysis which can be applied to the Saudi role, frankly. And this was something we found very strange. Many others found it very strange, this Saudi stance. Why do they support what happened in Egypt against the Muslim Brotherhood, this terrorist organization, while they support the terrorists in Syria? There is no convincing response for the Saudis, except that they are now sending more weapons and money in order to help the terrorists in Syria. There is no other explanation. With respect to Afghanistan, I'd like to tell you that 2.5 years have passed since this crisis began, and we haven't been transformed into anything which is similar to any other country. We are a unified Arab Syria, and we will remain as such. Our decision is independent, and it will remain so. We won't be Afghanistan, nor will we be any other country. Omar Muqdad from Al-Ba'ath newspaper. Mr. Minister, before I came to this press conference, I spoke to some colleagues from different Syrian provinces. In the Syrian provinces, people are going to their jobs, carrying out their duties, as if nothing is going on in Syria. After the American threat, Damascus also, we see normal state of life and people's morale is high. And part of what you said was about Damascus. My question to you is, what is your message to the Syrians in general? You reassured the people of Damascus, but I want you to speak and address the Syrians in general regarding the US threats against Syria. It's an important question, actually. First of all, I spoke about Damascus because of the battles being waged in Ghouta. And I say that Syrian people love life. And we must be committed, we must hold on to our love of life. And I say this to the people in Syria in general. And second of all, the one which will prevent the conspiracy and the campaign, what will prevent this is the cohesion between the leadership, army and the people. It must not only continue, it must be stronger, this cohesion between the leadership, army and people, because those who are planning for an aggression against Syria want to break this cohesion. Number three, Syria is not an easy target. We have the means to defend ourselves, and we will surprise the others with our means. Thank you. We must believe in victory. Let's give the other side. Safa Shahoud from the Syrian channel number 1. So don't we have any other journalists, correspondents? Please, if you allow me. If the United States of America and its Arab allies go ahead and launch a military strike on Syria, will there be a Syrian response which targets the U.S. military bases in the Arab countries? And will Syria strike the Arab bases which will participate in such a campaign against Syria? I said that if we are subject to an aggression, we have two options, either to surrender or to defend ourselves with the available options, with all the available means. And I will not specify. So this is my response. A question about do you expect a land invasion? The answer was no. Another question, Sam al-Zarqa from Al-Biladi Iraqi channel. There is a dangerous issue even if it is proven that the armed opposition, used chemical weapons. Responsibility, according to some Western officials, responsibility is on the shoulders of the Syrian government, whatever be the source of these weapons, because the state has become weak and incapable of protecting the chemical weapons which are alleged to exist. How do you read this? This is not true. The Syrian Arab television broadcasted a film about the sarin gas being experimented with in Turkish territory, poisonous gas, Turkish poisonous gas. And this film exists. It's there. So those who are providing the terrorist armed groups with these capabilities, they are the ones responsible. I tell you frankly, we might, and the facts might show that the victims of the use of the armed groups of this sarin gas are the Syrian people, and using or producing this gas is not difficult, as we can see by its use in Khan al-Asal. However, I'd like to ask, who were the victims, the majority of the victims of the use of chemical weapons in Khan al-Asal? Putting people on a wall in Khan al-Asal and assassinating them in cold blood. They were slaughtered in cold blood. So terrorism has no borders. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Haytham Dagher from Wall Street Journal. I would like to ask you, first of all, regarding the previous agreement signed between the Syrian government and the UN inspectors. They are not inspectors, they are an investigative committee. Okay, investigative committee. They visited 3 sites in Syria, including Khan al-Asal. The agreement specified this. The other sites, were they in al-Ghouta, in Damascus, which they intended to visit? And you also spoke about a plan to invade Damascus, for the armed groups to invade Damascus. Was this plan on Wednesday, when we saw these allegations about chemical weapons being used? First of all, it wasn't on Wednesday. On Wednesday, the preemptive strike was launched. It was launched by our armed forces. And because of this preemptive strike, all of this was revealed. All of this was shown on the internet. In Khan al-Asal, the committee carried out its investigation in Khan al-Asal. After 5 months since the Syrians filed the complaint, and it found that there was no need to travel to Khan al-Asal, it only requested the evidence to be sent to Damascus, and that is what took place. The sites in al-Ghouta, the 4 sites, they are new sites. We agreed about searching or visiting these sites last Sunday. It's not part of the previous agreement. A question without the microphone, however, which is inaudible. I don't know. Maybe you can ask this question to the investigative committee. We are not monitoring what they do. We provide the committee with security. We give them security guarantees and provide them with what they request. We are not monitoring their activity. They are sovereign, they are independent in the investigation which they carry out. Mr. Minister, you said the cooperation Ala Aid from Syrian TV. You said that there is high-level cooperation with the Iranian friends. What are the Iranians doing now? Do you have any information? What is the deal which Jeffrey Feltman has brought with him to Iran? First of all, Jeffrey Feltman, irrespective of his history, is the deputy of the Secretary General in Political Affairs. That is his post. He went to Tehran in this post as such an official. In his visit to Tehran, it's not more than his post about such an official from the UN. Yes, anyone in the back? Mr. Minister Sana Ali from Electronic Media, with respect to the work of the investigative committee regarding the chemical weapons, the Syrian Foreign Ministry doesn't have any information if this investigative committee has called the Turkish side to get to know any information about the terrorist prisoners whom Turkey previously released and their use of chemical weapons in Syrian territory. Another question, no, please. They published on the Anadolu Turkish news agency, they published that 12 terrorists from al-Nusra were arrested and in possession of chemical ingredients. Then they hid this news, the Turks. We, as I said, they are independent in their investigation and in their behavior, in what they do. From Associated Press, Mr. Minister, you said that there was an agreement to visit 3 sites, one of them Khan al-Asal. Can we know the other 2 sites? First of all, we spoke so much about Khan al-Asal and some black rooms or operation rooms in Turkey requested from the armed groups to go and eliminate the traces in Khan al-Asal. So I'm not allowed to speak about the other 2 sites for security purposes, as the Turks might also call on the armed groups to intervene there as well. Amir Dairawan from Al-Ghadir channel. Russia spoke about documents regarding the armed groups using chemical weapons from Duma. Did you receive these documents, and will they be published and shown to the public opinion? First of all,
Syria's Foreign Minister Walid al-Moallem talking at a press conference there, a very important press conference given the timing of what seems to be an imminent military, perhaps, intervention on Syria, of which we're going to give you details on this press conference. But in short, Syria will defend itself using all means available in case of a U.S. strike, is what he said, along with a lot of other details, which we'll cover in the top 5. That's coming up in a couple minutes' time. Do join us for that.